have to do the
I'm
motion?
sorry, yeah,
That's
you're
okay.
right.
I move to approve the activity/school bus waiver on employee as presented.
Second. All those in favor? 7-0. Now, consent agenda.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through E.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0. Old business, approve the 2019-2020 financial audit.
This was presented last month. Should be good to go with that. If you have any questions on that, Dr. Decker is not here today. You would have to table that until next month to actually approve it, if you have it.
I move to approve the audit report of the district financial records for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020, as presented.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor? 7-0. COVID update.
We never have this one, right? The COVID update. This one will be, we'll see how long this one goes. One of the things we tried to do was to try to come up with some consistency, get our kids on campus more. We all know that the pandemic is still going to be around for quite some time. We're fortunate vaccines are coming out, but that's still, when you look at the rotation for educational staff, February, probably March, before we start seeing some of that. So we still have a long road to hoe with things. Put together, along with the gating committee and input from others, a schedule that we would essentially look at staying in what we are right now up through the end of the first semester, which is the 21st of January. Beginning the 25th of January up through February the 12th, we would make a modification. This is all in the agenda, so if I say anything incorrectly about that, please holler at me. Make an adjustment to where we would still stay in pre-K through 12, 100% attendance. In grades 7 through 12, we would shift or modify that hybrid schedule to where half of our kids are in attendance every day. So it would be, for example, Monday, Wednesday, Friday of the first week, all the kids on hybrid A would be on campus. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesday, Thursday would be B. The next week we would just switch things. That way we get our kids on campus approximately 20% more of the time. The only way that we would look in any of the situations, the only two ways, we would look to go to a more restrictive environment based upon either case counts within the school system and transmission or spread within the school system, where I would consult with the health staff, mainly with Karen Lehman, our head nurse, and the building administrators, to try to determine whether or not we should go to a hybrid model, or if we had staffing issues and couldn't staff the building, like what we do now, where I make contact with the board president based upon consulting the administrators, and then we pull that trigger that way. So it's a way to provide certainty for an extended period of time. We would then hopefully, as we continue to progress through, we've got a little bump right now where we've got increase in cases. Hopefully it'll continue like what it was doing before Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving. With that decrease, we could even look to full attendance sometime this spring, I hope. So, what questions do you have? I know Luke has some.
Not really a question, just, I've spoken with several parents just in the last couple of days, and I just think that the back and forth every other day might not be good for scheduling for a lot of folks. I understand the idea of wanting to utilize that Wednesday to get kids on campus, and I would, if we're gonna do that, I just would suggest an idea to consider that, so it shows week 1, week 2, how about week 1, hybrid A goes Monday through Wednesday, and then week 2, hybrid B goes Wednesday through Friday. So we're alternating the Wednesday, but we're still keeping kids on the same schedule as far as the kids that are A go Monday and Tuesday, and kids that are B go Thursday and Friday. So I feel like a lot of folks have kind of gotten used to that schedule. And then so they would just be adding the Wednesday every other week in that situation. I talked to a friend of mine earlier today. He was just talking about every night, he asks his son, are you in school tomorrow? Just checking base, and I feel like when we're going every other day like that, it's gonna be hard for people to keep up. Might be easier for schedule. And a lot of those folks picked, or gave their preference for a reason. Maybe it's easier for them to do Mondays and Tuesdays versus Thursdays and Fridays, so. That's just, something to consider. I know probably won't make a decision very soon. I'm throwing that on you. I just said something quick that I read earlier today, but, I've talked to several folks just in the last couple of days. I think a lot of people don't like that idea of going every other day, switching what's going on.
I don't know, I don't dislike that. Caleb, what are your thoughts about something like that? I hate putting you on the spot. The thing about it is, I don't have to worry about the schedule, but the folks at the schools do. And so just in terms of the administration of that, I don't know, does that bring any?
From a teacher planning and learning perspective, the alternating days is a little better because you're seeing kids every other day rather than having that. So the last time you see them on a Wednesday and then you wouldn't see them again until the following Monday. But that's
Well,
just my,
Go ahead, sorry.
yeah, that would just be the only thing I would say.
I kind of like the alternating days, because it's less time remote
Yes.
in a row. So, I get what you're saying, I understand that, but I think having the kids in remote days in a row is not beneficial to the kids. So if we're gonna do this, I like the way it's presented with the every other day alternating. Because then they only have one day of remote in between instead of 2 or 3.
I agree.
I also think we could try it for the rest of the semester, and if it doesn't work out, or we notice that too many kids are missing their class because they're forgetting which day it is, we could make an adjustment for next semester, and go back to the current.
We're keeping it the same for this semester, right?
Yeah,
For these
it's
last 2
final.
weeks.
Yeah, you get this up
This
to,
is just for the first couple weeks of.
that will be up through February the 12th, up through February 12th. So we would have the first board meeting, I believe it's the 8th of February. So we would make this commitment up to the 12th of February to make that switch like that. That'd give us enough time to see if there's a lot of crazy issues in that regard, and we can make some adjustments. But that is my recommendation. And we keep that in mind, Lou. That's a good idea.
I see both points. I wake up every day in a panic thinking, who goes to school today? Where are they going? It's crazy.
I have it on my phone as a reminder.
Well, Sam does such a good job of putting out
Yes.
information about reminding you and stuff like that, so she won't get bored making sure that we have those schedules out.
Well, and at the high school level, Caleb sends an email out too, so we get it multiple times, or at least I get it multiple times.
My only other thing I would mention is people are definitely, one thing they're asking for sure is consistency, so.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of doing whatever we do for the third 9 weeks.
I'm totally fine with that as well, I really am.
And make a decision as soon as possible.
It sure takes pressure off of you on every 2
Yeah,
weeks.
I'm not really enjoying making that decision every other week,
Guys,
and hearing all that, backlash from one side or the other every time we do that, so.
We would create a black and gold calendar, kind of like we used to do with the block scheduling, but instead of it being half your classes one day, half the other, it's who's on site, who's not. And so it'd be easy visual, they can put on their fridge to know what they're doing.
Does anybody know if Chisholm planning on doing the same kind of thing as with the high school?
They would have to do the same thing. Yeah, because, we've aligned the A and B block, the A and B schedules, so whether they coordinate with one another.
Okay.
That's why when he goes on if he has a different final schedule, we've got to kind of work that through Chisholm to look at what unintended consequences there are based upon that, so. This would be 7/12. Opportunity Academy is outside of that, they would stay in their current hybrid, type of a mode based upon how they facilitate learning, so. This would just be the new high school and Chisholm.
So I would move to approve the recommendation for the learning environment as presented through February 12th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, first and second, all those in favor? Second,
Can I still ask a few questions?
Sure.
Okay, just on the gating criteria, I noticed the attendance for the staff was, not attendance, absence rate.
Yep.
Sorry, for the staff. And of course, I'm not keeping track of it every week, so I'm not sure how it's been trending, but that seems a little bit high. Is there anything?
Particular?
It's not much higher than what it has been the last several weeks.
Okay.
I mean, I can't remember, well, I could tell you, I could find out what it was, but that's not terribly far off from what it has been like the last 3 or so weeks. Of course, last week, we didn't have an updated measurement, it was from when we left on the break. So, if I remember right, it was pretty close to what we had right there.
Any insight into that absence rate?
Well, we have, like, for example, well, just even this week, we have more staff cases this week. Okay, the quarantines are actually not horrible for staff, but we're starting to see more staff cases that were a result of things prior to the break. So, I mean, just have more cases.
And will you still be sending the gating criteria?
Yes, I will update that every week.
Okay. And do we have any idea of kind of, I know we're kind of getting away from colors, but at what color range would kind of alert us to maybe need to make a change?
We would look more at the internal case, the transmissions that are taking place inside. We would look at that external data as well, okay? But if we have like some uncontrolled spread within the school, in any one of the school buildings, that's when we would look to really make that change. If we were in red and things were falling off, the wheels were falling off, we would work with the Hardin County Health Department for any advice that they might have as well.
are there any other questions on this?
Just that, the nursing staff has been doing a really good job, great job of, monitoring those things and keeping it from affecting the buildings as much as they can.
Yeah, we need to make sure that everybody understands that we have had some transmission in the school of like 5 cases. But because of the diligence of the health staff, especially Karen and her nurses, they've isolated those kids. That's one of the important things about getting on top of that. If you can get those kids out of school and those staff members that are either cases or close contacts, you just stop that node right there from going forward. That's been honestly a strength that they've been able to work through. And they'll continue to do that too.
I just want to make sure they got recognized.
They need to be, yeah, they really work hard.
They're doing an amazing job, and most likely that's why our cases are low.
They take that very seriously. And the administrators too, I want to give a plug for them because they're also involved in reaching out, making contact with parents and stuff too. So they all have to really work very hard.
And a really great team effort.
It is.
That's far, even, across the district at that in particular, so.
And Karen's record keeping has been great because that gives us a lot of data to look back at and look at what's happening in our buildings and plans moving forward, so I really appreciate that. That's fantastic.
The only other thing I have in that regard, and it's something we'll be talking about even a little bit later, is that there is another CARES Act was passed, as you guys all know. That's going to put us in a position to receive a much larger sum than what we originally had received, about $1.9 million. One of the things that is positive about that is that one of the 15 items that they encourage the schools to use that for from the federal government, it doesn't go to the state, is to look at some HVAC upgrades, which we all know. That's one of the reasons I really can't, in good faith, start saying, yeah, let's get kids back on campus because we can't social distance in those buildings. And with our HVAC the way they are, if we could look at accelerating the rate in which we change some of those things out, that'd be a real positive. So we'll talk about that more as we progress through the spring. But we also want to look at what kind of services can we set up from an educational perspective using those dollars to assist our kids that are really struggling academically and with social and emotional needs that aren't being met right now because of the pandemic. So that's what that stuff should be used for. So we'll be getting with you and talking more about that. One other thing that I'll bring up as it relates to the COVID pieces, the Kansas State Board of Education approved at the December meeting, 20 hours of time that can be used for professional development. Most all of you that understand how all that works, professional development could have been counted for like 1/2 time of student attendance. We have to get 1,116 hours. So if we got 20 hours of PD, we could apply 10 hours of that towards that 1,116. But they're going to allow us to use 20 hours of full one-to-one contact time, so we can actually provide some professional development time for our staff. So we're gonna get together a small group, hopefully this week and next week, come to you on the 25th with some dates for that, so that we can actually give our teachers a chance to collaborate without having a remote day. It will be a day just for professional development, because we use all of our stuff at the very first part of the year. So just kind of wanted to point that out as well. And I've talked to them.
Starting to sound like you, but
Yes, ma'am.
our next item is the approval of gift requests.
Jennifer's not here.
This is traditionally a vice president role.
It
is.
Alright. So I just say the recommended actions and then read them off?
Yep.
Alright. Okay. I move to approve the gift request as presented. Hesta Mennonite Church to Cooper Early Education Center for Resources for Families in the amount of $970. ACCO Corporation, Newton High School, donation for Student of the Week recognition in the amount of $800. Santa Fe PTO to Santa Fe 5-6 Center for funding individual teacher grants for classroom needs in the amount of $1,777.05. And McLean Tool and Technology LLC to Newton High School Radar Robotics, donation to assist with supply and travel expenses in the amount of $500. So we thank those folks for their donations, as well as the following gift requests from Kroger to Cooper Early Education Center and gift cards to families in the amount of $250. Dave's Muffler Shop to Newton High School Radar Robotics to assist with supplies and travel expenses in the amount of $50. Jasperson Chiropractic Clinic to Newton High School Radar Robotics to assist with supplies and travel expenses, $50. An anonymous donation to Opportunity Academy for PE equipment and student incentives in the amount of $150. Slate Creek PTO to USP 373 to purchase books for new schools for racial justice book study in the amount of $150. First Mennonite Church to USP 373 to purchase book for new schools for racial justice book study in the amount of $140. Peace Connections for the same in the amount of $140. Shalom Mennonite Church and for the same in the amount of $140. And Mass.com Haynes Company to Northridge, community donation for masks for Northridge in the amount of $158.
Second.
Okay, first and second, all those in favor? Go ahead, Adeline. The next item is committee appointments. And I believe that this is typically done at our summer meeting. And so we're just looking to fill the 2 positions that were left vacant by Jennifer Buddy. So we will need to look at appointing someone to the Harvey County Special Ed Co-op Board, as well as the Wellness Committee.
And I noticed we've got 2 members that aren't on here, so Andy.
Well, you
And welcome, Dana.
Thank you.
These are the signs, right?
So looking at this, the special ed co-op board, looks like it's up my alley. But looking at me sitting here right now and how much I love food, I don't know if I'm okay with the wellness committee or not.
And Mallory, I might add that the wellness committee has not started meeting up again this school year. So
Okay.
I didn't have that on as a motion The more important of the two is special ed because there is a meeting this Thursday.
Do you want us to appoint to the wellness committee just to have that done?
We can do that, or we can wait until, yeah, we can do it now, we can wait till, if people want to think about at least one of the two options, we can do that the next meeting.
Okay.
I don't have a meeting scheduled for the wellness committee, so I don't know. Jane, when do they meet? Do they meet after school?
We usually met
after
We
We can just, well, I think it's just good now.
Yeah, get them all
So
out.
the wellness committee meets right after school.
Okay, so I will make a motion to put Andy on the special ed committee and Danny on the wellness committee.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? 7-0.
And I might just mention on the vocational advisory board, I have never received information on when they meet, so I'm not sure who oversees that, but.
That would be Mr. Reed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll be reaching out.
Okay.
Our next item is the approval of Opportunity Academy early graduate request.
This is just a couple of students from Opportunity Academy. The neat thing about that educational environment is sometimes kids, they can finish early just because of the nature of their beats. So there are 2 kids that have completed the requirements and they've requested that early graduation opportunity. So I strongly suggest we do it.
I'll move to approve early graduation for Opportunity Academy students who are on pace to meet the credit requirements.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? 7-0. Approve the addition of full-time nurse position through the 21-22 school year.
This past fall, you folks all approved the hiring of 2 nurse aides, health aides, and those were placed in the buildings. Since that time, one of those health aides has taken another job in the district, and the other one is not as available based upon some other issues. So one of the reasons to try to also incorporate this is to use some of those new CARES dollars. We would use those CARES Act funds for this specific position from this year throughout next year as well. Hopefully COVID will be a thing essentially of the past, but I honestly don't think that's going to happen, especially for kids up through next fall. I think we'll always have issues where we're dealing with in that regard, even though vaccines are out. A lot of those vaccines aren't for littles, and so we still might have some of those issues associated with that. We could also transition that individual into the wellness committee and some other stuff to take that over next year if we felt like we needed to. But regardless, those 2 health aide positions were going to end this year. That still leaves 2 buildings without coverage, and this person would essentially serve as a floater. What we really would end up doing is turning Karen into the district-wide COVID coordinator for this year, because she kind of does that anyway. Then she would be doing all of the contact tracing, making sure all the notifications and stuff are being coordinated. We're also going to engage in some asymptomatic or some surveillance and also some symptomatic testing of staff and or students. So the surveillance testing we would do on a regular schedule through the WSU molecular lab. The lab setup that we had in the high school parking lot was great, but the results were pretty delayed. It was a couple of days before you got results. That WSU molecular lab, they've extended the service in terms of what it costs us, which is nothing other than getting our samples down to the WSU, and there's a 24-hour turnaround time. So if we could offer that surveillance testing to staff, we could eventually expand that to students and or some families if there's some issues. That's one of the things that I feel good about with respect to contact tracing and stuff like that as well. We could be testing staff, especially more regularly, and heading them off at the pass. There's also the symptomatic testing, which we're going to get some capacity there from Harvey County, which that's I can't remember how much time, like within a half hour. It's a swab, it's a nasal swab though, but they don't go up and tickle your brain, so it's one of those that's a little bit closer to the end of your nostrils, but it's a quick antigen test, whereas the saliva-based test is a PCR test. So that'll help us. Like if a kid comes in or a staff member comes in, if we have permission to do that antigen testing, it'll tell us if the kid's positive. If the kid's negative or the staff, they gotta go get a PCR test then for confirmation, but it will for sure determine whether or not a kid or a staff member is positive, if we have consent to do that in either one of those. So this would allow Karen that opportunity to do that. And I think it's a no-brainer to me, because we have a real qualified person that's already doing this anyway. We can get the other nurse in and make some transitions, so. What questions do you have?
Yes, my only question is, extending it into the following school year as well.
The reason for doing that is, like I said, I think COVID is still gonna be a thing that we have to contend with next year. So it would be only through that next year, in that position, we would then reevaluate in the spring, or the winter or spring of next year.
Do it for 12 months.
Pardon?
For 12 months.
Well, it would be this school year and the remainder of this school year and all of next school year. Because we would offer them a contract, they're on the teacher's salary schedule essentially. So you wouldn't offer a half of a year contract.
And, would we pay for next year with COVID care dollars as well?
Yeah, we're gonna have up through 2022. I don't remember the exact date, but we've got a couple of years to extend those funds.
But the salary is gonna come from the CARES money.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any more questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the hiring of a nurse for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year and for the 2021-22 school year as presented.
Second.
And moved and seconded, all those in favor? 7-0. Approve Bailey's first coronavirus response pack.
Jane is gonna talk to you about this. She's done a lot of work with this every day.
So I submitted some information to you that just has some facts. I'm gonna call it the FFCRA, expired on December 31st, and that was the federal government did not extend that for the remainder of the year. The act allows 10 days of paid leave if a staff member is required to quarantine, if they're seeking medical advice, so if they're going to go get tested, or if they have, for instance, a child at home who is on quarantine or sick, that then allows them 2/3 pay. And then what we've been doing is allowing them to use their own personal sick leave for the other 1/3, so that they're not losing any pay. So what we're asking this evening is for that to be extended to cover the rest of the school year. I did visit with some school districts in the state of Kansas. I'm part of a Kansas HR school district group. We had a lot of conversation. It's a big topic with all of us. Out of the 16 districts that responded to our survey of whether they're extending, there's only 4 districts that are not. So other school districts feel it's very important to offer this leave, and I'm in agreement with them. Some of them are extending it month to month, so the end of January, the end of February. I'm asking that we extend it through the end of May. And then I am also asking that we adjust it. There are 6 reasons listed of what this pays, but I'm asking us to only do 1 through 3 due to the expense for number 1, for number 5, which is to allow somebody to potentially be home with their child when school or daycare is closed. That allows up to 12 weeks of pay, and that kind of that there's quite a bit of cost of that, so we would be paying them 2/3 pay. It's also very difficult to determine whether that actually qualifies for COVID, so I have a list of like 7 or 8 questions we have to go through. And so for us and the numbers that we've been seeing, we didn't really see a large group of people need to use that this first semester, so we're looking at just doing the 1 through 3. Did reach out to KESB, they support an extension, and then the Department of Labor put out information on January 4th that they also support an extension. So I just ask that you consider extending that for our staff. We do have staff that have used all 10 days already, so they wouldn't get another 10. This would just be for any staff that has not used or if they had some left over. I have this massive spreadsheet because this year we have to report that on W-2s. So, which was very fun to figure out how we were going to do. Massive spreadsheet to show exactly how many hours staff members have used, and so some still have some left, and then others have used their 10 days. Any questions for me?
Did you say 1 through 3 or 1 through 4?
Oh, did I
I
say
thought you
it
said 1
wrong?
through 4.
1 through 4,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
you said 1 through 3, I
4.
thought, but I think it's 1 through 4.
It is 1 through 4.
And I see an approximate cost in here, where is that coming, is that through CARES, is that through our budget, where is that?
We haven't designated where that comes from.
Okay.
I mean, that's just the cost at this point in time. But that could be used, those CARES funds could be used for that.
Are there any other questions? Anyone want to make a motion for that?
I'll move to approve the extending the FFCRA emergency paid sick leave through May 31st, 2021 for reasons 1 through 4 only.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, all those in favor? 7-0. Our elementary and district department team reports are in the agenda, if you are interested in reading those. So that takes us down to board comments. Andy, we'll start with you.
Congratulations, Mallory, Melissa. Looking forward to your leadership and moving forward. I am working on Summit right now, so just so the community knows. We've been having some meetings, and we will continue to be having meetings, and I'm looking forward to the communication going on. I met with Fred, we had a real good talk, and Sheila, and so we went over what I think is some of the roots of what we're doing and how we're gonna, that hopefully alleviate some of your concerns with communication. And so I'm looking forward to getting to that here within the next few weeks, at least to be able to communicate out strong with the same message that, you know, a unified message of what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it. So I'm excited about that because I know that's a concern for a lot of our community members, so just know, guys, that we're working on it, and we'll appreciate your patience right now. Most of you guys have been super gracious about it.
Welcome, Dana. Yeah, hope you had fun.
Yeah.
Nice, it's a little different being on this side of the table, but, and also congratulations to President Morton and Vice President Melissa Schreiber. I'm looking forward to another year being on the team, and, yeah, I'm glad to be here and be a, you know, team player, and I think we're gonna do some good things. I know we've been focusing on COVID a lot, but, there's some light at the end of the tunnel there, I think, if we can start, looking at big picture items and, you know, looking down the road ways, so. Thank you to all our staff, hope everybody's, enjoyed getting back in the buildings a little bit the last couple weeks. Looking forward to TOC this weekend, so hopefully everybody can tune in on some of that.
Welcome, Dana, glad to have you, and I'm looking forward to this next year. I think we have a great team, and like Luke, I'm looking forward to looking at other things besides COVID. I'm sure everyone is, but, yeah, looking forward to this next year, so.
So, thanks everybody for welcoming me, it's been interesting, excited to learn a lot.
Interesting and lots to learn, for
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you, Mallory, and Melissa, for stepping up, and, welcome aboard, Dana. Thank you.
Welcome, Dana, it's nice to have you up here. Yeah, kind of echo what Luke and Andy said, I think we have a really great team, and I've really enjoyed working with all of you. I love to hear the different things that you all go out and do in the community. We're all very, very different. And you're reaching out and having meetings and talking to parents and bringing that back, and I like that we're so different, but that we have a common goal, and I really do believe that our goal is our kids and educating our kids well, so I enjoy working with you. Thank you to all the staff for your continued work. Huge shout out to health aides and nurses and custodians. They're doing so much every day. The custodians look like they're from Ghostbusters with the things on their backs. I mean, it's incredible what they do. So that doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you for that. As some others have said, I'm really excited to work on some items that are not COVID related. I was thinking about it, Fred, you've only known us in COVID mode, and we've only worked with you in COVID. So I'm looking forward to some different conversations before long. I don't even care what it is, so. Thank you.
Watch what you say there, though.
Oh, you'll get me. Okay, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? 7-0.